That is a lovely shot. That's 6.
Hi everyone and welcome to My Cricket Gear. Today we're looking at the GM Eclipse, which is a new bat for 2020. The particular one that we picked up was in the 909 grade, which is entry level grade 1 for GM. The price that was paid was 24999 and it was bought at It's Just Cricket in London. Obviously they normally handpick their bats, but GM don't allow people to go to the factories, so you basically have to take what is given. But I've got to say, over the last year or two, especially in the last year, I think GM have upped their game in terms of bat making performance, and they have managed to get very consistent bats. A lot of that is to do with the fact that they do use a CNC machine, so all their shapes should come out basically the same every time that they make the bats. But something to note that's different from the GM Eclipse is that it is a slightly softer press than I'd expect from a GM normally, and that's one of the big reasons why I decided to take the plunge and purchase one of these. So let's have a quick look through the specifications now. So the blade is actually a 540mm blade as opposed to a 555mm blade, so 1.5 centimeters shorter means that it picks up a little bit lighter, and that meat of the bat is a bit more concentrated, so good for shorter forms of the game like T20 if you play a lot of that. To offset that, the handle is 31 centimeters long, so overall length of the bat is a standard bat, but you're getting a longer handle there. Some people like it, some people don't, so it's worth trying out to see if you prefer that. If we look at the grade of the bat that I've got, 909 is entry level grade 1, so you're getting sort of generally straight grains, should be evenly spaced, and if we have a look at the actual blade itself, you'll see, even generally. Pretty straight. There's a little bit of a wave, I think about halfway down. Could get a bit of heartwood, in this case on the right hander's inside edge, and you see a bit of a streak going across it. I think there are 2 marks across the actual blade, but what I would say is it actually performs really well out there. So just because there's a bit of staining or colouring on there or a bit of a mark doesn't always mean that it's going to perform worse. Sometimes it can actually perform better, so it really is, if possible, trying out bats in person. And as you can see here, as we come through, you see the wave itself a bit of a way down, but doesn't affect the performance. And with this slightly softer press, which is unusual for GM, it actually feels really, really nice when bouncing a ball. So the handle, one of the big talking points for GM this year was this hex grip that they've added in. When I was at Salix recently, they were quite impressed with the grip. The only thing I think that they mentioned was maybe the gloves that you're using could wear out even faster due to I guess more rubber, sort of digging in more contact there. I'm not sure exactly what would cause it, but yeah, I mean, it's very grippy, and when you look at it visually, it kind of reminds you of the Kipax WaveX handles, if you've ever looked at Kipax bats, but there's a difference there. Kipax actually make the handle itself wavy, whereas GM, it's all in the grip, and if you roll down the grip, it's just the standard handle. Whether or not people will like it, I guess that's up to you to kind of work out. For me, it's alright, but I generally put another grip over the top anyway, so it will be a chevron, but there's still a bit of a feel. You feel some of the ridges that come through. In terms of the weight of the handle, the grip itself on the handle, you're looking at a standard sort of 1.3, 1.34 ounces, which is not more than normal In fact, GM's grips that you find on the Noir and the Diamond, which are retaining the same grip design from 2019, they actually come in at about 1.79, 1.8 ounces. So if you want a heavier grip, but you only want a single grip to help balance out the bat, then I'd certainly go with those and change this grip out. So even though you get lots of ridges and bumps and things on there, it's not actually adding any more weight to the handle. So yeah, we'll have to see further along how the wear and tear goes on it, but it's nice, a bit of innovation from GM. Looking at the bottom there, you see it's, there's no concaving in it. It's a convex profile, which is really nice to see. These, full profiles are generally what you see on more like the Pro Bats, but the Pro Bats are enormous, low density clefts that they're using. But like I said, it's nice. I don't mind a little bit of concaving, but it's still, good to see on a bat like this, which I think even the Signature, that was a full shape, and that's a much cheaper sort of level for the Eclipse at about £140. So yeah, full dome almost shape. Now if we look at the edge and the spine height, nothing special. I mean, 34mm edge, 59mm spine, well within the laws. So you're not getting huge specs, but you are getting the largest sort of volume of wood that GM actually produces for their bats in this shape. So there is actually a lot of wood, and people shouldn't really get so hung up on wanting 40mm edges and 67mm spines, because once you start rounding out those edges, you're going to lose a bit there anyway. And yeah, it could be a guideline, but in reality, some of the best bats that I've used, they felt a full way in the sort of the bat gauge measurements, so I don't think it's a major thing to worry about. You will notice though that there is a slight offset between the maximum spine height and the maximum edge thickness, so that helps, I think, to enlarge the sweet spot, and that makes it a very nice bat to use. Longer middles mean that they're more forgiving, so I think very good for club players. But the nice thing about this particular bat, at least the one that I got, was that even low down it pinged nicely, so it's actually making me think about going for higher middles but long middle bats, which obviously aid with the pickup when the middle is set higher. If we look at the actual middle and the playing area itself, you'll see that the red marks that I've put on the bat indicate the size of the playing area. So anything in there, you're going to get some trampolining, the rebound. Anything outside of the red lines is a dead area. You shouldn't really be hitting the ball there, although based on my cricketing talents, I seem to toe end quite a lot of balls. But yeah, ideally the playing area is what you should be looking at. If we move on to the sort of length, size of the sweet spot, yeah, reasonably sized. You see the sweet spot itself actually starts off a bit lower than maybe I was expecting to, but it is set higher overall. So if you do play in nets a lot, which generally the ball bounces a bit more, and if the wickets that you use, are harder, the ball bounces, the quality of the bowlers, they can get more pace off, then you may consider a bat like this. You may favour a bat with a lower middle if the ball generally keeps very low where you play. So that may factor in your decision making when choosing a bat design like this. But what I would say in the instance of this bat that I've got, it actually pings nicely, even relatively low down, lower than I was expecting. The last thing to have a look at sort of in this shot is the bat balance point. So basically I'm going to be measuring where the balance point is on a lot of bats and see if I can spot any kind of trend to help indicate better pickups, whether or not having the balance point lower or higher, how much that has an effect. So I think look out for that in a few other videos, and maybe we'll be able to draw some conclusions after that. So if we look at the thickness of the toe, you'll see 18 mils at the edge, and then right in the middle 25 mils. I think 18 mils is a little bit on the thin side for me, just because I'm not the greatest player and I don't really want to blow out a toe. So generally, I would favour a thicker toe. Obviously, the thinner the toe, the less weight at the bottom, and it will pick up nicer. But I generally like something a little bit thicker, because the spine doesn't really run fully into the toe. It does run in, but it's a very sort of mild spine that runs into the toe. So you do get it a little bit thicker at 25 mils, but it's not dominant there. But overall, yeah, it's nice. I mean, you can see the toe tech guard in the photos as well, and that, you know, I like the GM toe tech guard. I think it's better than a standard one because it is protecting the toe, but it's not too thick, and the way they've finished it, sort of almost in line with the bat. It looks more pleasing because you can't really see it. The shade is very similar to that of the natural wood. And the other thing is that I think when running the bat in and things, it's less likely to get caught on something and then fall off, because invariably with toe guards, I always find they fall off a lot, and in fact they get quite annoying. I got run out once because a toe guard sort of split and then got jammed in the grass and ended up sort of bouncing up, and then I was run out because of that. But you know, that was probably also my fault. I was slow to set off for the second run. I think the only toe guard that I think is better than this GM one would probably be the one from Labour and Wood. I really like their design, and actually you'll see in a future review, close-ups of the Labour and Wood toe guard. But it is a very good one that GM produce. And I like it. Okay, so the bat does pick up pretty nicely. It's £2 9 ounces, and it certainly feels at least an ounce lighter than that. Throw on a second grip, and yeah, it does feel super light. Obviously, things like the higher middle position do make it work in its favour, and you'd expect a light pickup for a bat which is balanced in terms of the middle position the way it is. But then again, it's a full profile, so there is quite a bit of meat there. So it's nice to have that light pickup in a bat which has a full shape. So overall, out of 20, we scored it 16. It would have scored higher, I guess, if it had just felt that bit lighter. There was some expectation that it should pick up light anyway, purely because the middle position is so high. But still, 16 out of 20 is a good score. Okay, so in terms of ping for the bat, it was quite surprising when I bounced the ball on it for the first time, because it didn't have that typically GM hard firm press. It actually was slightly softer, still firm. I'd say it's sort of more of a medium hard press than the outright hard ones that you normally get. And that was a nice thing, because I know some people aren't really attracted to GMs because they always think it's a bit of a hard press. But then again, you heard what Ben Stokes did with that ball that he hit for 4 to win the Test match at Headingley this summer, and that's what can make it addictive for people that like a harder press. I never used to be so into those harder presses, but then I started using Labour and Wood, and they're rock hard presses, but wow, they really, really go. But for general feel, when you bounce a ball on a bat and you like that trampoline effect, you do feel it more with the Eclipse. So in terms of score, I think we're going to give it 15 out of 20. I think it's good. I think it opens it up to more people who may have been put off by the way the GM bats have been pressed in the past. But it's not quite Keeley level, and if you've ever used a Keeley bat and know how addictive they are, and the way that Tim Keeley presses the bats, then yeah, it's not quite there, but very, very good. So 15 out of 20. I certainly think with this Eclipse, the sweet spot was surprisingly large. You expect it to middle high up, considering the shape, but actually lower down there was some really good action, and I can still get the ball to ping really well even lower down, and it's actually making me consider picking bats with higher middles for the benefit of the pickup, and then having some action lower down. So if you can find a bat like that, I think that's sort of the perfect bat. Great pickup and wicked ping. So for the Eclipse, I've given it 17 out of 20. 17 out of 20 puts it in the realms of your Salix and your Keeleys. Some people who really like kookaburras, who always think they, ping really well. It definitely has that kind of feel to it. So I think 17 out of 20 is a very, very good score. Like having a big sweet spot, which I think is important for us who are not as good and are not so consistent in terms of the way that we play. I think the playing area is also very important. The benefit here with the Eclipse is, it has a pretty big playing area, a lot more forgiving than we expect. Like I said, I was surprised that I was getting some performance lower down where I was expecting it to be pretty dead, but that wasn't the case. And I think partly that's to do with the way that they've pressed this bat, and it feels very nice. And hopefully this will be sort of a standard way of pressing for the GM Eclipse, and it won't just be the first lot that they produced, because I think that's good for their range. I think it differentiates from the standard GM bats, and to get quite a large area that can be used as a playing area there, to get decent trampolining effect across it, I think it's very nice. And I think now, this is a 4.5mm camber, so you're getting semi-flat face. It seems like bat makers are saying, yep, that's pretty standard now. No one's doing sort of round face, flat face. It's all semi-flat now. I think it's sort of a best of both worlds overall. And I think in terms of the size of the playing area, we can give this a score out of 17 out of 20 as well. So 17 out of 20 is comparable to the Salix AJK that I used, and the Kookaburra Rampage, which I also have also has a large playing area and fares much better than even the Keeley bats. I think the thing about when you'll see it in the review for the Keeley is, although it has a really, really great sweet spot, the problem is the playing area isn't so long. It's sort of focused on hitting out the middle, which is great if you're a professional, but for somebody like me who is an amateur and I will hit it all over the blade, I think something that's bigger and more forgiving is better. So that's why I think this score of 17 out of 20 is a really good one. Right, value. Well, the GM Eclipse, 909 grade, 24999 for entry level grade 1. But the grains, they are straight. Straight's key for me. Almost perfectly spaced in terms of evenness, so another sort of tick in the checkbox for that. Okay, there's some blemishes on the face, but the performance, where the blemishes are, no problems there. In fact, it probably performs even better. So I think for 250 quid, it's very good value. And over the last year, the GM bats have been excellent value. I think they've been flying off the shelves. They might even be the number one selling brand in the UK. I'd hazard a guess, because just the sheer value, the prices you can pay. I mean, I could have got the I think it was a Signature they were selling for 13999, which is a bit more expensive than last year. They have increased the prices a bit, but even the performance in the Signature was good. But I really like this 909, so that's why I picked this one instead. I could have paid £100 less, more than £100 less, and got the Signature instead. But I was just really happy with this particular 909 that I got. So I don't think there's any brand that can really beat them for value. Certainly not if you're buying a new bat. And long may that continue, because I think people who want really good value for money on their bats, it's difficult to see past the GMs really, and I expect them to fly off the shelves again this year. So 18 out of 20 for value. Because of the way that GM make their bats, the actual shaping is done using a CNC machine, so it basically means that the shape is always going to be the same. You're not going to get the nuances of a completely handmade bat, but what you're going to get is a guarantee in terms of the profile shape that you get on there. I think GM's finishing is really good. The only thing that may be different is, sometimes you get one that picks up a bit nicer just because of the density of the willow there. But other than that, you're not going to see that much of a difference. I think they put enough detail into how they grade their bats. Their bats are not just a grade 1 plus 1, 2, 3, 4. They go through many levels there. So, you can pick out anything as low as a 303, 404, 606, 707, 808, 909. The numbers just go on and they split them up. So I think there's a price point for everyone there. And I think their level of consistency generally is very, very good. Of course, if you're talking about the best, then yeah, you need to go for those players' bats, but they are very, very expensive. But then again, they're worth the money. I mean, if you've ever picked up a player's bat and seen the size of the specifications on there, how light they feel, but with great performance as well, then you can kind of understand why they charge hundreds of pounds. But you're talking about what, £100 more for a player's edition versus their sort of limited edition bats. I've seen some other bats from other bat makers where for the equivalent of a player's edition bat you could be paying 50% more money, which is absolutely insane. So yeah, I mean, you are getting consistency for the grades generally. Again, another reason why they've sold so well. The only problem with the GMs are that none of the retailers, as far as I'm aware, can handpick, so you are relying on them. I think they've put machinery and automation into the right place. Certainly with the Eclipses that I'd seen, they were all, because they all came up with a softer press, it makes me believe that they are handpicking which cleft, which piece of willow will match which shape they're trying to make. And they are pressing, to get the right performance. So there is some matching there, which I think is key when you have automation. I worry for some of the other brands that may be being produced overseas, where they are using automation or they're just mass producing them. They're not matching that particular piece of wood with the right shape. So sometimes it's a bit of a mismatch, but certainly doesn't seem to be the case with the GM. And that's why, for consistency, I've given it 18 out of 20, which I think is the highest score that I've given for any bat in terms of consistency. Now we move on to the second tier categories, the first one being specifications. So now I think in this day and age, lots of people chase specs. The reason they chase specs seems to be because of online shopping. It's less often that we can go into stores and go and pick up the bats, or when you go into a store to find the bat that you're looking for. So I think we rely a lot more on online shopping for products. And when you're looking at a bat, knowing that it has a 40mm edge and a 67mm spine, knowing that it's got lots of grains. It's got 20 grains. They're all straight. It's all sapwood. There's no heartwood. There are no blemishes. These are details that for a lot of people, that's what I want. This is what I think the perfect bat should be, or I want a bat as good as what Coley uses, or what Joe Root is using, or what Steve Smith is using. But I think the reality with specifications is that I don't think they make the bats better, really. You're not going to get that much better. I've got bats with really crappy specs, but they perform fantastically, and I've bought bats that look like the best bat in the world, and they've been absolute planks. But there are, of course, certain indicators that you can look at that will help you define whether a bat is good or not. So in the case of this particular one, the specs aren't that impressive. You're talking 59mm spine. Good, but nothing special. If you look at the edges there, 34mm, again good, but nothing special. The toe isn't particularly big either, at 18mm on the edge. So yeah, it's nothing special in terms of the specifications. So from 1 to 5, I've given it a 3. I think it's pretty average, but that doesn't mean that it performs badly just because it's got an average score there. In fact, if you look at the scores I gave it for pickup and ping, and the sweet spot size and the playing area, it scored very well there. It's just the case of some people are looking for specifications, and specifications also have to be done relative to the weight of the bat, the dead weight of the bat. So if this bat's 2.9, I expect sort of something in the middle, and it's something in the middle. It does pick up nicely because the middle position is higher. But yeah, you're not getting crazy specs. I think I'd quite like to see what a Player's Edition Eclipse looks like, because then I can imagine you're getting your 40s, you're getting your 67 mils there, and it'll probably weigh £2 8 ounces or something. But certainly, if you want value for money, then don't worry so much about the specs, because as soon as you start looking at the specs, the price just starts to climb really, really quickly. It's a piece of wood, and not every single piece of wood. None of them are the same, so it's harder and harder to get those massive bats. And in all honesty, we don't really need them. I think it's a little bit of a marketing trick. Okay, so grains. When looking at grains, some people like more grains, lots of grains, 15, 20 grains. Some people like fewer grains. Obviously, the more grains, the older the bat. The older the bat, it's going to be more brittle, but you're going to get high performance very early on in its life. Fewer grains, wider grains, it means the bat is actually, the wood itself is actually younger, but it may not feel so responsive at the beginning, and it will take time for it to open up. But where you gain from going with bats with the wider grains is you should get more longevity out of it. The willow is stronger. In this case, this one's got 8 grains, and they are straight grains that go through the toe. I think the key, even if possible. I think anything less than 6 grains, it might take quite a while for it to get into. 8 grains, 8 to 10, I think is sort of the perfect number, and this one's 8. So I really do like this bat in terms of the number of grains. I don't try to get too caught up on that. I mean, I've got bats that have got 19, 20 grains. I've got bats that have got 5 grains, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. But yeah, I think this is sort of the Goldilocks sort of number, that 8 to 10 kind of range, and it does perform really nicely. So in terms of the grains, I've only given it 3 out of 5. Yes, it's got a number of grains I want. Yes, it's straight, but the blemishes, the waviness in there means that I'm not going to score it a 4 or a 5, because in all honesty, that's what people are paying for. I'm paying 24999. I think it's a really good price for what I'm getting, but I'm comparing it to those bats with a lot more grains or super straight grains, no blemishes on there. So in that respect, 3 out of 5 is what I've given this bat. Okay, so the GM stickers, I like the way they color code them. It's easy to work out which model of bat you're using. If it's blue, it's a diamond. If it's black, then it's a noir. In the case of the orange here, we have, then it's a burnt orange, I think is what they call it. Then it's an eclipse. So easy to identify. They've got better at showing the wood in more recent years, so that you get some manufacturers where they try and make the stickers as big as possible to cover up all the blemishes. Obviously, a blemish-free looking piece of willow will fetch a higher price, but this style that GM have adopted to show more of the wood, I think, is a good thing. I think it makes the bats look more attractive. You're never going to get something as minimalist as maybe a blank bats one, unless you actually just take all the stickers off, and that obviously doesn't really help from a branding perspective. So yeah, the stickers are pretty nice. One slight criticism is, I don't know if this is a 2020 thing, but the outline of the stickers is actually transparent, and I can actually see the glue, and so that makes it a little bit less appealing. From a distance it looks great, but then as you get close up to it, and even the adhesive to it, feels like it's peeling off, so I'm not sure it's had enough time to settle, or they've used a different glue this year, because it seems like it's starting to peel a bit. But overall, I'll give the stickers a 3 out of 5. It's nothing special. They're nice, but nothing special. So 3 out of 5 I think is fair for it. So on to feel. I think feel is actually something that I was thinking maybe I should put it in the main categories with a higher score, just because it's the only bit of the bat you're actually holding when you're using it, and I think the feel can make a big difference for people. So if you look at the grip that they provide, this new hex grip, I quite like it, but I do put another grip on top of it, so I don't really feel the full benefits or negatives of that particular hex design. I think the handle that they use, here they've gone with 3 cork inserts instead of rubber ones, but certainly the bat feels fine when I've used it. And I think it's more of a semi to full oval at the bottom with a round sort of feel at the top, which is pretty standard. I think most English brands generally go for oval handles. If you are somebody that lives in India or Pakistan, you may be more used to round handles, and that may be your preference there. You play a lot more sort of sweep shots. You're a lot more wristy in terms of the way that you execute your shots, compared to us here in the UK. So that is something to be aware of if you really do prefer a round handle bat. But apparently, from a technical standpoint, it's better to use an oval one. I'm generally very oval. If I get custom bats made, then I generally go for very oval handles. But it's kind of up to you. Whichever way that you feel comfortable playing. So rolling down the handle, you can see the binding's pretty good. No issues with that there, and you can clearly see the 3 cork inserts in there. I think overall the handle's not too thick, so most people should be okay with it. If you do put a second grip on there, then it does feel thick then, and so if you've got bigger hands, that's fine. If you've got small hands but you like to use sort of 2 grips, then maybe it may feel a bit big for you. But yeah, no issues overall, and that's why I've given it 4 out of 5. The build quality of GM bats is generally very good, and I think it's no different in this case. I think that they, obviously using good materials, following excellent production standards and methods, they go through quality control to check that things are finished up to a high level. So overall, nothing to report in terms of the problems here in terms of build quality. I don't think I've ever come across a GM bat where I've had any issues in terms of the build quality. So I'm going to give this a very easy 4 out of 5. So the finish of the bat, I think it's pretty good as well. It's not going to ever, unless you spend a huge amount of time, you're never going to get to the level of something like a Salix. Salix's bats are just amazing finish. They burnish wax into the actual blade when they're polishing, and it just gives it a really, really special quality. But that takes time. So you're talking about mass-produced brands like a GM, GN, Kookaburra, SS Ton. Those guys that make large volumes of bats, I think that they can't really spend that amount of time because it's going to cost them something there. But something like a Salix, Labour and Wood as well, also they both finish bats really, really nicely. So if you're going to score a 5, then you'd need to be at that level. But still, solid. So I've given the GM Eclipse a 4 out of 5 for finishing. Okay, so the last criteria for this review is accessories. So accessories, what do I mean by that? I guess, mainly you're talking about things like giving a case for free would be the biggest one, but other things as well, that I think add on to the value. Scuff sheets and edge taping, toe guards, even the types of grips that people throw in with their bats, the different brands provide. So in the case of the Eclipse, I like the grip that they've put in. It's something new there, so that's worth something in terms of an add-on. They do include a scuff sheet, a good quality scuff sheet as well, that's already been applied, so that's a plus for it. Their GM Toe Tech, so they have a really good toe guard that's added to it, so there's points for that. The only thing it's really missing out on is a case. Obviously, they do sell one separately. If you see at the very beginning of my video, you'll see actually that's a previous design. That's the Mythos 2019 case. There's a new one which I think's in all black now for 2020. But yeah, that'd probably be the only thing that they would need to throw in. Does everybody need a case? You don't necessarily need one with shoulder strap on it, but I do think they're useful when you're putting them in your bat, when you've got things like helmets and spikes in your kit bag, and the last thing you want is, you know, a streak, you know, a dent, a ding in your bat. I don't mind so much when it's on the back, but I do really mind if it's on the face of the bat, and it could damage the bat badly. So I think providing some kind of case with your bat is a nice add-on. So I've given the Eclipse a 3 out of 5 for the scuff sheet, the toe guard, and you know, a good grip. But there isn't any kind of case included with it, and that would probably be what boosted the score up higher. You can add edge tape to it. I probably will add it to my bat, but you know, the scuff sheet that they've applied does wrap around the edges, so there is some protection there already. So yeah, 3 out of 5 for accessories. To sum up then, I really wasn't expecting this from a GM bat. I wasn't expecting the ping from that sort of softer press. I wasn't expecting to buy a bat with a high middle because, you know, I really wanted the sweet spot to be lower down on the bat. So it's actually surprised me in a very positive way, and yeah, I really like it. Looking at the scores across the board, it's, you know, it's done very well. It definitely found its way into sort of the 5 bats that I'll put in my kit bag, especially since it does have a higher middle, and if I do happen to play on tracks, or if I'm using a nets or something where I want the middle to be higher up, then I think, yeah, it's a great one to go with. I think GM have come out with some crackers over the last year. I really, really do, you know, admire where they're taking the brand. I think it's something that a lot of the other big players could probably learn from, and be interesting to see how the competition sort of heats up there. I do think they should persevere with this bat with a softer press. I do think it gives them access to more markets, areas that, you know, that they haven't been able to access, because as soon as people have bounced the ball on it, it just didn't feel the way that they wanted it to. It doesn't mean the performance is bad, it's just the feel related thing about the GMs. But I think in this case that they're really onto a winner. So it's managed to get itself an overall score of 80%. Definitely going to be in my kit bag. I do sort of go through bats, and, you know, people take bats off my hands because I'm always going through so many. But I think in this case I'm definitely holding on to this one. So look out for a video of me using it in the nets. I'll have some commentary to go with it, and you can, you know, hopefully hear the performance there and see how it goes. I have used it in the nets already, and when I got it out in the middle, it was really nice. So yeah, expect to see that video soon. Thanks for watching it. I'm sorry the review was so long. It's sort of my first attempt at doing a video review. I look forward to any comments or suggestions that you can make. I will try and edit down the videos to make them a lot shorter, because this one took forever to make. If you have any questions, or if you have any bats you think I should be looking at, either to purchase or just to review, or if you have any questions about anything, then you can find me on my Instagram page, My Cricket Gear, or obviously on my YouTube channel where this video is. Thanks for watching.